English Edge podcast.
From Learn English with Ease.
Let me ask you something, and I want you to be honest with yourself. Have you ever tried shadowing? Like, really tried? You played a video, you repeated after it, maybe even paused, rewound, tried to match the pronunciation, and for a moment it felt like, okay, maybe this is working. But then later, you're in a real conversation, someone asks you something simple, and suddenly, your mind goes blank. You freeze. You forget words you know. And in that moment, shadowing feels like a lie.
I'm really glad you said that, Jack, because this topic is deeper than vocabulary and grammar. It's emotional. And I know there are listeners right now who understand almost everything in English. They watch movies without subtitles. They follow interviews. They laugh at jokes. They can read articles. But the moment someone looks at them and says, "So, what do you think?" their mind goes blank. And that blank moment feels humiliating. It feels like your intelligence disappeared in 3 seconds.
Yes, that blank moment. Let's slow it down. You're in a conversation. Maybe it's in class, maybe it's at work, maybe it's online. Someone asks you a simple question. You know the answer in your head, maybe even in English, but suddenly your brain starts racing. Okay, how do I say this correctly? Is this the right tense? Is my pronunciation wrong? What if they don't understand me? What if I sound weird? And while you're thinking all that, silence grows, and silence feels loud.
And that silence feels like judgment. Even if no one is judging you, it feels like they are. It feels like they're waiting. It feels like they're thinking, why is this taking so long? And in that moment, your heart beats faster. Your chest feels tight. Your throat feels dry. And you finally say something, but it comes out simple, smaller than what you wanted to say. And immediately after, you replay it in your mind and think, that sounded so dumb.
Let's break this down, because this is where everything changes. Most people think shadowing is about
repeating sounds, matching pronunciation, copying rhythm. But real speaking is not about repeating. It's about creating.
That's the gap. When you shadow, you're following. When you speak, you're leading. And your brain feels that difference immediately.
That's why you can perfectly repeat a sentence like, I think it's a really interesting idea. But when you want to say something similar on your own, you freeze. Because your brain is not trained to build the sentence. It's trained to copy it.
And here's the scary part. Copying feels like progress. It feels smooth. It feels safe. There's no pressure because the sentence is already there. But the moment that safety disappears, your brain panics.
Let's go deeper into that panic, because this is where most people misunderstand what's happening. When someone asks you a question in English, your brain is not just thinking about the answer. It's doing multiple things at the same time. Understanding the question, searching for words, building a sentence, checking grammar, worrying about mistakes, feeling judged, all at once.
And if your practice, like shadowing, doesn't train those exact skills, then of course you're going to freeze, because you practiced one thing. But real conversation is something completely different.
That's why shadowing alone doesn't work. Not because shadowing is bad, but because it's incomplete.
It's like learning to sing by copying songs, but never trying to sing on your own. You might sound good when the music is playing, but without it, you feel lost.
Exactly. Now, here's where most people go wrong with shadowing. And this might be uncomfortable to hear, but you need to hear it. You are shadowing passively.
Meaning, you repeat words, but you're not thinking. You're not engaging. You're not connecting the sentence to your own life.
You're basically saying sounds without owning them.
And your brain knows that. Your brain is like, okay, we can repeat this voice, but can we use it? And the answer is no.
That's why you feel fake sometimes when you speak English. Like, the sentence sounds right, but it doesn't feel like you.
Because it's not yours yet. You borrowed it, but you never made it your own.
So when the situation changes, even slightly, your brain has nothing to hold on to. And that's when the blank moment happens.
That moment where everything disappears, and you just sit there thinking, I know this. Why can't I say it?
Let's stay in that moment for a second, because this is important. When your mind goes blank, it's not because you forgot English. It's because your brain was never trained to retrieve it under pressure.
Shadowing doesn't create pressure. Real conversation does.
And your brain needs both. It needs exposure and it needs struggle.
But most learners avoid the struggle because it feels uncomfortable.
So they stay in shadowing because it feels productive, but safe.
And safe doesn't build speaking ability.
Now, I want to ask you something again. When you shadow, do you ever stop and ask yourself, could I say this differently? Could I use this in my own life? Could I answer a question using this structure?
Most people don't. They just move to the next sentence, and the next, and the next.
Which turns shadowing into a listening exercise, not a speaking one.
And that's the core problem.
So now the question becomes, how do you fix this? How do you use shadowing in a way that actually helps you speak?
Because we're not here to tell you to stop shadowing. That's not the answer.
The answer is to change how you do it.
To turn it from passive repetition into active training.
And that's where everything starts to shift. Because once you make this one change, shadowing stops being something you do and starts becoming something that transforms how you think in English.
So, if shadowing the normal way doesn't work, then what actually does? Because I know someone listening right now is thinking, okay, I get it. I've been doing it wrong. But what am I supposed to do instead?
Yeah, and this is where everything changes, because the fix is not complicated, but it does require you to shift how you think about practice. Not just what you do, but how you do it.
Let's start with the biggest shift. Shadowing is not about repeating perfectly. It's about training your brain to respond.
That one idea alone can completely change your results, because right now, most people treat shadowing like a performance. They try to sound accurate, clean, native-like.
But real conversation is not a performance. It's a reaction.
Exactly. When someone talks to you, you don't have time to be perfect. You just need to respond.
So instead of asking, did I pronounce this correctly? You should be asking, can I use this immediately?
And this is where we introduce something most learners never do, the switch moment.
This is powerful. Because this is the exact point where shadowing becomes speaking.
Here's how it works. You hear a sentence like, I didn't expect that to happen. You repeat it once, maybe twice, and then instead of moving on, you stop.
That pause is everything.
Because now you ask yourself, what would I say in my life?
Maybe. I didn't expect the exam to be so hard. I didn't expect you to call me. I didn't expect this situation.
Now suddenly, you're not copying anymore. You're creating.
And your brain starts building connections. Real ones, personal ones, usable ones.
This is the moment your brain shifts from recognizing English to producing English.
And that shift is what most people never reach.
Because they rush. They think more sentences equals more progress.
But it's actually the opposite. Less sentences, deeper processing.
Now let's go even deeper, because there's another mistake hidden inside shadowing, and this one is subtle.
People shadow at the wrong speed.
Yes, they either go too fast and lose understanding, or go too slow and lose natural rhythm.
But the real issue is not speed. It's awareness.
But maybe you had experiences in the past that made this fear stronger. Maybe a teacher corrected you harshly in front of the class. Maybe classmates laughed. Maybe someone switched to your native language because they thought your English wasn't good enough. Those moments stay in the body.
Or are you just trying to keep up?
Because if you're just chasing the audio, your brain is in survival mode, not learning mode.
And survival mode doesn't build fluency.
There's also another hidden pressure, wanting to sound impressive. Maybe you don't just want to communicate, you want to sound intelligent, sophisticated, professional. And that desire is valid. But when that desire becomes pressure, it blocks flow.
Because flow requires safety, and pressure removes safety.
Then they make it personal. I'm going to go check that restaurant out. I'm going to go check that video out.
Now look at what just happened. Same sentence, but now it lives inside you.
And right now, you might be in the scale practice stage. That's not boring. That's foundational.
And only one of those leads to speaking.
Now let's talk about something deeper, because this might be the real reason you still feel stuck. even after practicing.
Your brain doesn't trust you yet.
Yeah, and I know that sounds strange, but think about it. When you try to speak English, there's a voice in your head that says, "What if this is wrong? What if I mess up? What if I sound stupid?"
And because of that, you hesitate. You slow down. You stop yourself.
Shadowing, when done passively, never challenges that fear, because there's no risk.
You're just repeating someone else. There's no judgment, no exposure, no pressure.
But real speaking requires you to take ownership,
To say, this is my sentence.
even if it's not perfect.
And that's scary.
So your brain avoids it.
And stays in the safe zone.
That's why you can practice for hours, but still freeze in real life.
Because you never trained your brain to handle uncertainty.
So here's what you need to do, and this is simple, but powerful. After every shadowing sentence, add a risk moment.
Meaning, say something. Without the script.
Even if it's messy, even if you pause, even if it's not perfect.
Because that is the skill you actually need.
Not perfect repetition, but imperfect expression.
That's how confidence is built.
Not by getting everything right, but by surviving getting it wrong.
Let that sink in.
Now imagine this. You do this every day, just 10 to 15 minutes. But instead of repeating 50 sentences, you deeply work on 10.
You repeat. You pause. You switch. You personalize. You take a small risk.
Day after day, your brain starts changing.
Something shifts. You don't just recognize sentences anymore. You start owning them.
And one day, without even realizing it, someone asks you something in English.
And instead of freezing, you respond. Not perfectly, but naturally.
And that moment feels completely different.
Because for the first time, you're not translating. You're not copying.
You're speaking. Now, here's the moment most learners skip: the emotional shift. It's not enough to just do the exercises. Pause, personalize, risk. There's a deeper layer you need to reach.
And that layer is identity.
Exactly. Because here's the truth most people never say out loud. When you freeze in English, when your brain goes blank, when your sentences feel fake, it's not because you don't know English. It's because your brain doesn't believe that you can speak it.
That's huge. Think about it. You've been shadowing, repeating, mimicking, thinking, I'm improving, I'm getting better. And maybe you are. But inside, there's still that little voice. Who am I to say this? What if I mess up? What if they laugh?
That voice, it's subtle, but it kills fluency. It doesn't matter if you know 10,000 words. It doesn't matter if your pronunciation is perfect. If your brain doesn't trust you, you will freeze.
That's why shadowing alone doesn't work. It's not just about speaking. It's about owning your voice.
And that's where the new way of shadowing comes in.
The one that actually transforms your brain.
You shadow, yes, but then you immediately switch. You take the sentence, you twist it, you make it yours.
And here's the critical part. You do it without judgment.
Without worrying about sounding perfect, without worrying about grammar mistakes.
Because mistakes are not failures. They're evidence that your brain is building fluency.
And the more you embrace that discomfort, the faster you break the freeze. The faster you actually speak, not just repeat.
Let's make this real. Imagine you hear, I didn't expect that to happen.
Instead of repeating, you pause. Then you personalize. I didn't expect my teacher to call me today. I didn't expect this traffic jam. I didn't expect to forget my keys.
Your brain now has real ownership. Your brain now has real ownership.
It's not memorization anymore, it's creation.
Creation is the skill you actually need in real conversation.
And the beauty of this method is that it's compound. The more you practice this way, the more your brain starts predicting sentences. The more it builds patterns automatically, the less it panics.
Until one day.
So instead of asking, "Did I sound smart today?" ask, "Did I practice today?" That question is healthier. It focuses on effort, not ego.
And without thinking,
You respond.
naturally,
Not perfectly,
not memorized.
but confidently.
And here's the thing.
That moment, it's addictive. It feels like you finally own English, not just repeat it.
That's the transformation most people chase for years.
And now, you can reach it in weeks.
Because this method bypasses fear,
It bypasses fake fluency.
and it teaches your brain to think in English,
Not translate, not copy.
but speak.
Now let's talk about how you can start today.
Because knowing all this, without applying it, doesn't help.
Step 1, pick a sentence you hear in a video, podcast, or show. Step 2, shadow it once, twice, maybe 3 times. Step 3, pause. Personalize. Make it yours. Step 4, say it aloud, imperfectly, fast or slow. Doesn't matter, as long as you own it. Step 5, repeat this with 5 to 10 sentences, not 50. Depth over quantity.
And here's the secret most people miss.
Step 6, do it daily, but always track your risk moments. Moments where you speak without script, without perfect pronunciation, without translation.
That's how your brain rewires itself.
And over time, those freeze moments, they vanish.
You start speaking freely,
Confidently,
naturally,
and every sentence becomes yours.
not borrowed,
Not memorized.
but truly yours.
That is the power of shadowing done right.
So if you've ever felt stuck, frozen, or frustrated,
Stop blaming yourself.
start shadowing the right way.
Your brain will thank you.
And finally,
You'll speak, not repeat,
not translate,
not freeze.
but speak.
Naturally, confidently, like yourself.
And that's what everyone wants.
So go ahead, pick a sentence, shadow, personalize, risk, and speak.
Because after this, English will stop being scary
It will stop being a language you memorize.
and become a language you live.
You'll see.
The first time you feel that flow,
You'll never go back.
because speaking will finally feel easy,
Not because you learned more words,
but because you finally trusted yourself.
and that is freedom.
So go ahead, take that first sentence.
And make it yours.
You're ready.
You really are.